Let's talk about editing drums, and specifically editing drums in a way that sounds more natural than just highlighting everything and hitting quantize. This is a method that I've been using for years now that I don't know how unique it is to me, but I think it strikes a good balance between having things sound really fake, but still keeping things in time and preserving the feel of the original drummer, which in this case is me. So let's jump into the computer here and just listen to a little bit of what we're going to be working with. This is like a 6/8 indie rock kind of ballad track here, and it is unreleased, so you didn't hear this from me. Let's just listen to a little bit here. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mute the track, and we're going to be listening to the drums and the click instead. I'm going to edit to the click and to the grid, but again, that doesn't mean that I'm quantizing. We're not actually doing any strict quantization in this method. So if I zoom out, the first thing that you'll notice is that I have already comped many takes together. So comping is when you record multiple takes and you can put whichever parts you want from each section into the final take. And I prefer to do that above all else. If I can avoid doing any editing and just comp parts together, that's great. So that would be my first recommendation, is before you edit at all, get many takes and comp the best pieces together, and you may not have to do any like strict editing at all. So you'll notice that I have done a lot of that. I've done a lot of comping, but we are still going to do some further edits here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab everything and I am going to consolidate it. And you'll notice that as I'm doing that, I have everything grouped. So all of the drum mics are grouped together, so that if I highlight, it highlights everything. And if I move something, it will move everything. And that is very important for one big reason. Because when you record multiple microphones at the same time, you have a very important phase relationship between those microphones. And if I try and grab, like, let's say, just the bass drum mic or just the kick in mic, and then I move that to be more in time, well, that's a huge problem, because now the bass drum has a different phase relationship with all of the other mics. And in extreme cases, you're going to not only hear bad phasing issues, but you're going to hear flamming, because the sound is going to hit the one mic and then it's going to hit all of the other mics, and it just sounds terrible. So don't do that. Edit with everything grouped. That is the next tip there, is to make sure that whenever you're editing, don't just grab the kick, don't just grab the overheads. Like, everything has to move in at the same time. So anyways, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to do some editing using what's called elastic audio in Pro Tools. I think it's called Flex Time in Logic. I'm not sure what it's called and everything else, but I'm sure every program has this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to polyphonic and wait for that all to render out. While that's happening, we're just going to talk about what we're actually going to be doing. And this is the point at which a lot of people would just look at all of these little points here. So what this analysis does is it shows all of these little transient points. And what a lot of people will do is just grab all of them, just highlight all of them, hit quantize, and what will happen is they will all snap to the closest grid marker and call it a day. The problem with that is that it ends up sounding very fake a lot of the time, and just because of the way that a human drummer plays, a lot of the time it actually sounds worse than if you had done less quantizing, for reasons that we can get into in another video. But what we're going to do here is we are going to use elastic audio to try and move as few points as possible. So check out what happens if I set a control point here. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to find the spot that I want to edit, which I'll say is like spot 1 here. And I'm going to put a control point out here at the beginning of that so that nothing over here is going to get affected. And then I'm going to put a control point at the end, maybe like here. So when I start moving things around, only the audio in this boundary is getting affected. So I've set up those two control, I was just gesturing at the screen like you can see me pointing, but in any case, you can see that only the audio within those two bounds is getting affected. And that's really, really important because I don't want to, if I shift one thing over, I don't want to shift my entire drum track. So the important thing that you'll notice here is that if I'm taking this note and moving it forward, it's not moving everything forward at the exact same rate. It's moving the notes closest to it more, and the notes farther away, it's moving less. And that is really, really important for keeping the integrity of the drummer's performance in check, because drummers don't tend to speed up and slow down for one single hit and then be completely on for the rest of it. Because a drummer's limbs are connected and just because of the way a human plays, usually we will speed up a little bit in a particular section or for a few measures and then adjust. And that's exactly what you see here. If we listen to this part with the click, again, this is me playing, so, you know, be gentle in the comments. In this section here, I'm early on this build-up here, and I hit that downbeat too early, and then right around here, I sort of catch myself. Hear that again? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a marker on a spot where I felt like I caught myself and I was back in time, because I don't want to mess with that. If I'm in time again, I don't want to move that spot around. So I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to place a marker, and notice that I'm placing a marker using the kick in mic as my source. This is where the marker is starting, because that's where the transient, that's what the transient hit first. So you want to, if you're editing a kick or if you're editing a snare or whatever it is, you want to place your edit marker or your little control point. You want to put that on the microphone that was closest to that source. So that's what I'm doing here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, this note right here, that downbeat. Oh, sorry, not that one. This note right here. This is supposed to be right on the downbeat. And it is not. It is clearly ahead of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to shift it back. And what you'll notice is that that's done some help for us, because this note was also a little bit early, but now it's been shifted back so that it's more or less in time. So now I can listen to it. That sounds better, but now this section here is a little bit late now. So I'm just going to grab this note right here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to grab this one instead. Just shift it. Boom. And now I've only made two little edit points, and now everything else is not perfectly quantized, but it's more or less in time, and it still preserves the feel of what I was playing. And that's the thing, is that most drummers aren't like wildly all over the place. Usually it's just like a little bit of rushing or a little bit of dragging in a particular section or for a particular number of bars. So that's kind of what was going on here. So now we listen to it. And that sounds way better to my ear, especially hitting this downbeat, which is a super, super important moment. That needs to be in time. And just by shifting those 2 points, everything else is now sounding much more in time, but it doesn't sound like a hard quantization. So it's up to you how far you want to go with this. And you can see like this note is kind of bugging me a little bit. And if I wanted, I could grab that and I could shift that over. It's up to you how much you want to edit, but my advice, my recommendation is to try and edit in as few moves as possible and let the elastic audio do the work of kind of nudging everything else into its right place. And I think you'll find that you actually spend less time editing if you do that, and everything sounds more natural because you've done less messing with your phase relationship, and you're not messing with all of these really tight subdivisions that that it just ends up sounding bad, in my opinion, most of the time when you do hard quantization. So let's do this again. Let's find another section here. So, okay, here's a spot where I'm a little bit late. Oh, I'm being very vulnerable here, showing you all the warts here in my plan. But you can see that I'm pretty much on time right here. And then I'm late. And then I'm late for this bar, and then I'm basically back on time. So why was I late? Specifically for one measure? I don't know. That's why I practice. So anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a control point here because I don't want to affect that. And then I'm going to put a control point here on this snare note because this snare note was pretty much right on, and I don't really want to affect that. And it's just this section here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this bass drum, boom, notch it forward, and you'll see it pulled this bass drum forward a little bit too. Then it pulled this one forward a little bit as well. And now, okay, without, just late, and then with, just nudged forward a little bit. Sounds a lot better to my ear, and sounds a lot more in time, and again, doesn't really sound fake. So that's pretty much it. Just to recap the important points here, you always want to edit everything in a group. You do not want to mess with the phase relationship between all of your multiple microphones. You should try comping first before you start messing with elastic audio and shifting things around. You should try comping takes first because that is about as natural as it gets, other than just doing it perfectly in one take. If you have another take where a certain section was more in time, then just, put that in there. And then if you do need to edit further, which I do clearly in a couple sections here, try to use flex time, elastic audio, or whatever it may be, and try and move as few spots as possible. Try and make your edits in as few moves as you can. And I think that you'll find that things just sound more natural, and you actually end up needing to edit less. So hopefully this was of some use to some of you. If you stuck with me through this whole thing, thank you for watching. Let me know if this is helpful. Let me know if this is a way that you edit already, if I'm totally, not unique in this. Or if you have any other tips to make this more useful. Again, this is just a method that I kind of developed for myself, but I'm sure that it could be improved. So let me know if you have any ways to improve it, or if any of these tips helped you. Thank you again, and I will see you next time.